Hi, Briony.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
What brings you here to Vancouver, specifically to
Yeah.
Nature Center?
Well, I'm back to Vancouver for a very important event. It's 80 years since Ian McTaggart Cowan headed up the Vancouver Natural History Society, which is now Nature Vancouver. And so I'm going to be kind of doing a talk about his life leading up to all through his early childhood in Vancouver and North Vancouver, and right up to his position at UBC as one of the first, major professors in wildlife management, but so much more. He just about is every first you can imagine. I mean, he's sometimes called the father of Canadian ecology. He came from a long lineage of very famous British naturalists, Scottish naturalists, and he was really kind of at the forefront of the environmental movement. He was a huge proponent for citizen science and for local natural history clubs and for childhood education. He set up the very first television show in Canada on natural history, called The Web of Life and the Living Sea, and he, in fact, hired David Suzuki. And it was his television programs that led to The Nature of Things. He was on, every kind of commission you can imagine, from the International Whaling Commission that got the moratorium on the hunting of whales, right to being kind of the senior writer and editor of the Birds of British Columbia, a massive sort of multi-volume edition. He was a small mammal expert and wrote The Mammals of British Columbia. He was a plant expert. He was an expert in mollusks. He was probably one of Canada's finest naturalists and educators and scientists. So I'm here to commemorate his life and just to kind of share with the membership this incredible legacy that he left. He for a while, back in 1955, he was kind of a household name around the world because his television shows were broadcast all around the world. And he was friends with some of the big educators back in Britain, like the Attenboroughs and Sir Peter Scott, and helped set up the World Wildlife Fund and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And he also spent a lot of time with trappers and hunters and First Nations that were out in the was always outside. He was always doing his stuff. And who was there but the people that are, tending the land or out hunting and trapping or just living there. So he was a real proponent for the North. He worked with Tom Berger on the pipeline inquiry and was the expert witness on caribou, because he was a great ungulate specialist. He did his PhD in deer. So he always had a really great affinity for the subsistence hunter, because he grew up poor in North Van, hunting for the pot, as they say. His dad lost his job during the Depression. He was a botanist. He had to start growing a market garden. So Ian went out hunting up in Hollyburn, starting in probably 21. And it's there that he actually met the Mundys, Phyllis and Don Mundy. And they were great inspirations for him. But the people that he met that were huge inspirations was this collection of Canadian scientists, people like Jim Munro, J.B. Harkin, the father of Canadian parks, Percy Tabner. These were sort of old names, old Canadian scientists who really set the tone for like the next 2 or 3 generations of naturalists and environmentalists. They had formed a secret society. They were very much educators and believed that, people should have access to nature. They should share their knowledge, and that, I think for some of them, because they'd gone through a world war that was traumatizing. They really believed in the role of nature for sanctuary and for kind of civilizing. They talked about nature civilizing people. So he came from a grand tradition, that's for sure.